Back in 2008, a research study led by Dr. Irving Kirsch of Harvard Medical School analyzed the results of 35 drug trials submitted to the FDA to get approval for antidepressants. They were testing Paxil, Prozac, Effexor, and Cerazone, really popular meds. Kirsch used the Freedom of Information Act to gain access to everything that was in the studies, and what he discovered was shocking. For patients with mild to moderate depression, which is most people who take antidepressants, the results were basically the same as placebos, sugar pills. Those with severe depression felt only a bit better, and only the totally out of it folks noticed some improvement. In 2010, the Journal of the American Medical Association reported the same thing. The statistical results of these double-blind clinical trials, where people don't know if they're being given a drug or a placebo, showed that almost the entire effect of antidepressants is placebo. This means they didn't pass the FDA standards for drug efficacy. Yet the FDA still approved these medications for marketing. But how could this be? Well, I'll tell you. The drug companies provide 75% of the funding for the FDA's approval process. I can't think of a worse conflict of interest. The FDA only reviews studies that were designed, performed, and paid for by profit-driven multinational pharmaceutical companies, or farmed out by those companies to private research firms whose interest it is to find positive results for their employers. It's absolutely no secret in private research circles that these collaborations virtually guarantee some fraudulent results. People think that FDA approval means that a psychiatric drug is safe and effective long-term. But it doesn't even mean this for the short term. Psych drugs are rarely tested in clinical trials for longer than a few months, while most patients take their drugs for years or decades. The drug companies pay researchers crazy amounts of money to do their work. It's done mostly by academic psychiatrists, like the ones that bored me with their lectures. And some of them actually sit on the FDA or industry advisory committees that fast-track these drugs through the approval process. It's criminal. I used to have a client who worked for Pfizer, the drug giant, and he told me that when they apply to the FDA for marketing approval for a drug, they only send them one or two of the most favorable studies that seem to show short-term safety and effectiveness. The negative studies are shelved and never revealed to the FDA or any agency unless subpoenaed by the courts or applied for through the Freedom of Information Act. Talk about putting your best foot forward. In the case of the super popular psych meds known as SSRI drugs, selective serotonin reuptake pump inhibitors, great name, lab animal studies usually only last hours, days, or weeks, and the human studies only last 4 to 6 weeks, way too short to draw any valid conclusions about long-term safety and effectiveness. So we shouldn't be surprised that over the years, an epidemic of adverse reactions has occurred. Addiction, brain damage, dementia, suicidality, as well as the more common side effects like worsening depression, insomnia, constant tiredness, obesity, diabetes, blood pressure problems, nausea, weight gain, loss of sexual desire, decreased orgasm, erectile dysfunction, dry mouth, blurred vision, constipation, dizziness, agitation, irritability. Sounds like a bad day. Oh, and don't forget anxiety. Then you get an anti-anxiety med with all its side effects. It's crazy. Also, another side effect is violence in some people. Studies on the school shooters in the U.S. show that the conventional wisdom that they were nuts and didn't take their meds is wrong. Most of them were taking their meds, insane cocktails of the stuff, and that's what made these already vulnerable young people crazy. But the whole notion that messed up states of mind are caused by brain chemical imbalances is false. These chemicals, called neurotransmitters, have never been proven to be imbalanced in people suffering from depression or other bad states of mind. There are over 100 known neurotransmitter systems in the human brain. And so proposing a theoretical chemical imbalance is laughable if you know anything about neuroscience. It would be impossible to prove that any two neurotransmitters within these 100-plus systems are imbalanced when they're all entangled together. And no drug would ever be able to rebalance them in that infinite web of interactions. It would require a level of knowledge centuries more advanced than where we're at. It's utter nonsense. But these simplistic theories have been relentlessly promoted by Big Pharma to a gullible public. It's not an overstatement to say that the drug companies resort to propaganda to convince prospective patients and prescribers why they should be taking or prescribing these meds. And the craziest thing is that while drug companies and doctors work to convince the public that meds correct a chemical imbalance that causes their symptoms, the entire psych diagnostic manual is based on the idea that mental illnesses have no known cause. It's the most glaring contradiction you can imagine, and it's right there out in the open, like the biggest elephant in the universe that no one sees.